The scythe arrived late on a cold November afternoon.
Hi, this is Memo, and we're talking about Scythe. So the first part of this video will be non-spoilers, and then we'll get into some spoilers, and I'll let you know when the spoiler part comes. In the future, the humanity is so advanced, they solved all their problems. Everyone is living in peace. Everything is governed by an all-powerful, all-seeing robot AI in space called the Thunderhead, and that robot is doing a fantastic job. There are no diseases that can't be cured, and on top of that, if you die, a bunch of small cute robots just come over and pick you up and take you to a revival center, and then they just revive you. It takes like a couple of days, but then you're back alive. And even if you get old, you can just reset back to your early 20s whenever you want. There are even some companies trying to lower the reset age so you can get to be a teenager once again. I don't know who wants to be a teenager again, but when you have everything, I guess you want more. Well, in this world, there is one problem, and that is people don't die anymore. So in order to control the population, you have to come up with a solution. When you have an all-powerful computer that governs everything perfectly, you can just go ahead and ask the computer to regulate that as well, right? Wrong! They decided that death should be controlled by humans, and the Thunderhead has no control over it. And when you left it up to people, they ended up coming up with the worst solution. And that solution is they elected a bunch of individuals who can at any time kill any random person. And these people are called scythes. Okay, without getting into any spoilers, the story is about two teenagers who were accepted as apprentices to a scythe. So the scythe is going to train them in the art of killing painlessly and quickly, you would think? No! Scythes kill in all sorts of ways, apparently. There are poisons and blades and guns, and there's a flamethrower. So the thing is, once a scythe kills you, then you're dead. They will not bring you back to life. And killing in this book is called gleaning. The world building in this book is interesting because it's about 300 years into the future, and there's a super advanced AI computer that regulates everything. But it seems like everything else pretty much the same. I guess there's like a super fast train, but like no one takes it. It's kind of mentioned. So the sci-fi in this book is soft. It's soft sci-fi. People just drive regular cars, I guess, still. There was like a mention of a classic car. Scythes live by 10 commandments. They have their own 10 commandments, and they're not bound by any other law. Everyone respects scythes. If a scythe comes over to your house, you just prepare them a meal. You just show them all the respect you can while they get prepared to kill your child, supposedly. Being a scythe also comes with perks, so you can get free tickets to theater or opera or concerts or whatever you want, because everyone wants to be favorable with scythes. So if you become a scythe 300 years from now and you want to see Hamilton on Broadway, you finally can get tickets and see it. Okay, here's a side story. When Hamilton was playing off-Broadway at the Public Theater, I was still a student, so I had my student ID and student discount. So one day I went to the Public Theater, and they had one ticket available for that day, and I was able to get it for $30. So that's how I saw Hamilton for $30 before it came to Broadway, and it was the original cast and everything. So I don't have to be a scythe to see that, but you might. Everyone is obviously trying to become favorable with scythes so that they're hoping they won't kill them. And actually, they do have the jurisdiction to not kill them. Scythes completely decide who they're gonna kill by themselves. They also decide what method they're going to use to kill. Some scythes are more merciful, others are not. Even though the commandment says, "Thou shalt kill with no bias, bigotry, or malice aforethought." So every year they check who a scythe killed, and they sort of make a list, check the statistics, and if they're showing any sort of bias, their gleaning privileges are sort of taken away from them. So the next year a committee decides who they can kill, or they have to approve all the gleanings with the committee instead of being able to kill at will. When you become a scythe, you also pick a new name for yourself, and that name is someone who has been influential in world's history in a positive way. So a lot of scythes have names of scientists, like Scythe Isaac Newton, Scythe Albert Einstein, but it can be pretty much any discipline that you want. So like if you're into photography, you can be Scythe Ansel Adams. If you're into cinema, you can be Scythe Steven Spielberg. Or if you're into art, you can be Scythe Leonardo da Vinci. And I want to know what name you would pick if you became a scythe, so comment down below and I'll check them out. Scythes are also not allowed to have any earthly possessions. Again, this is sort of like an optional rule because some scythes live in fancy houses and others don't. I'm not sure if this rule is enforced enough. I'm actually not sure if any of these rules are enforced. Let's take a moment to talk about this cover. I absolutely love this cover artwork. There is a scythe in a red robe, but scythe robes can be any color they want except for black. They cannot wear black so that they don't look like the Grim Reaper. Now, they can't have any earthly possessions, but they can have obviously their robes, and they have to keep a journal, although they can write whatever they want in the journal, so doesn't have to be exactly truthful, but it can be read by others. It's not a private journal, and they can also have a ring. Now, the thing with this ring is scythes can grant immunity to other people, which means if a scythe grants you an immunity, then no other scythe can glean you for the next year. And if a scythe gleans a person in a certain household, they grant immunity to everyone else that lives in that particular household, so no one else can be gleaned for the next year. But they can also grant immunity randomly, as some scythes do. The scythes also have a quota, so they can't really kill over a certain number of people in a certain year, and they get together 3 or 4 times each year, I think, and those meetings are called conclaves. And in the conclaves, they discuss matters related to scythedom, and also they test apprentices, and they accept some apprentices as scythes and reject others. Our protagonists are 2 teenagers, Citra and Rowan. My main problem with the protagonists in this book was that, sure, they're teenagers, but they're completely disenchanted. They don't want anything from life. They don't even necessarily have strong relationships with their families. Like Rowan doesn't even like his family, and Citra kind of mildly likes her brother, I guess. But other than that, they're not leaving much behind when they become a scythe. And I think one thing that would have made things interesting if they wanted something different with their lives, and being a scythe was actually preventing them to be that, so there was a choice to make, but that was not the case with these characters. And I guess it's hard to find a purpose when you can be anything you want and you don't have to really be anything in a world where all your needs are met easily. You don't even die. But still, as far as getting invested in a character, I like a character who wants things and who is proactive about getting things instead of being presented a goal. And the way the plot moves forward can get annoying. There were some plot developments where I was like, this just doesn't make any sense. Like, how did this happen? You just 5 minutes ago, you told me that this could not happen, and then 5 minutes later, you just completely break these rules. And that was just, I could not accept those moments. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but there were several of those moments where I kept getting annoyed and annoyed, but I kept reading because the book is an easy read itself. Some people say they got bored while reading this book. I did not get bored at all. I think it flows really well. The villain in this book is incredibly annoying. It's really, really annoying. The villain breaks every rule the book sets, and no one does anything about it. And I just could not accept that sort of a villain. He's just like a madman, I guess. It's just like, you know who's the villain. When you see it the first time, you're gonna know, oh, that's the villain. Because the guy is just evil. There's no nuance to the villain. And even his philosophies are just like basic sociopath philosophies, I guess. I don't know. When you can't get on board with the villain, it's really difficult to follow his story. So as far as the characters goes, I imagine that the protagonists were not much driving, and the villain is absolutely annoying. So for me, these were significant weaknesses for this book. The ending was somewhat satisfying, nothing like earth-shattering or whatever, but it came naturally and it didn't come like out of nowhere. It was a result of everything building up and coming to this point. So I like that. I was satisfied with the ending, but don't expect something incredible. Now, I enjoyed this world of Scythes and like its rules and like how, I don't know, it was a fun world to live in. But my main problem with this book was the premise. I mean, obviously humans are stupid, so I can see that kind of a decision being made to just like, you know what, let's regulate death ourselves and just leave everything to the super intelligent AI robot in space. Except for this, even though the AI robot is doing a fantastic job, but you know what, we're gonna do this ourselves and then mess it up completely, right? I think this is like the absolute worst solution to this problem. So now I'm going to come up with my own solution. Like, how would I solve this overpopulation problem? I think any solution would be better. So I'm going to offer 2 solutions to solve overpopulation in the world of Scythe. Number 1. Okay, now number 2. First, you have to control population growth. One of the protagonists has like 27 siblings or whatever. Why is this allowed? Why is it allowed for people to have that many kids? So first, everyone can have only one child. You got divorced and got married to someone else? Too bad. Even if that other person does not have any kids, you are not allowed to have any more kids. Every person can only have one child. This automatically decreases the rate of population growth. But they're regulating my penis! Bitch! You let a random stranger come into your house, kill your child right in front of you, and you don't have any problem with that, but you have a problem with birth control? Okay, now that we have the population growth rate under control, we still need to kill some people. And here's how you do it. Give everyone 100 years free without the fear of getting gleaned and let them live. 100 years is a lot of time. And you can also reset during your 100 years, so you don't even need to get old. After 100 years, you are given a certain percentage for a chance that you might be gleaned every year. And that percentage increases as you get older, depending on how many people you need dead. So that can be when you're 100 years old, there is a 1% chance that you are gonna get gleaned. But then when you're 200 years old, maybe there's a 20% chance you're gonna get gleaned. And the method of killing just okay, so they have this pill that you bite and it instantly kills you. You don't feel anything. It's just completely instant. But a lot of sites still just use all sorts of creative methods. Their logic is just they're recreating how people died in the mortal age. But we're not recreating anything about how life worked in the mortal age except for how death is. Why? Who made this random decision? No, this is gonna be the cleanest, easiest, the least painful way possible. So it's gonna be a random lottery by the all-powerful space robot, and then whoever is picked, it would be done quickest, least painful, regulated way possible. Okay, this is not fun. I see. This is not a fun way to kill people. It's not. You know what? Maybe death should not be fun for anyone involved. And I mean, it says that space travel did not yield any favorable result, but who knows? This is 300 years into the future, maybe 1,000 years into the future. They will find different planets with more resources, and then you can increase the quotas for how many people you kill every year. There it is. Memo's way of resolving population overgrowth for the future people of SCYTHE universe. Overall, I enjoyed this book, and if you found what you heard interesting, you probably will too. As far as the rating goes, I have 3 ratings. One is Memo's pick, which is the books I like a lot. The other one is read it if you like, it's kind of interesting. And the third one is sure. I mean, I guess. For this book, I give read it if you like, it's kind of interesting. As I said, I wasn't particularly invested in the characters, even though at the end they did end up in interesting places. And even though they did end up in interesting places, I still have not read the second book yet, and I don't know if or when I will read it. Maybe I will wait for the third book to come out first, and then maybe I'll read them together. If I don't read them, I don't think I will miss it, but I certainly think it was a fun read, and it's a lot of people's favorite book, and a lot of people hate it, so there you go. Okay, now I'm gonna get into some spoilers and talk about some plot progression and some little things that annoyed me. So if you haven't read the book yet, and if you don't want to get spoilers, I recommend you stop now. Since you're still here, I'm gonna assume that you have already read the book or you don't care about spoilers. So the way the plot progression works in this book is, at first, there really is nothing wrong with their lives. Then SCYTHE Faraday arrives and takes both of the kids as his apprentice. So the first part of the book is them just getting trained, and he promises them he is going to get one of them as his apprentice, and the other one is going to go back to their own lives and as if nothing has happened, which is the standard procedure for SCYTHEs. Whenever an apprentice gets denied SCYTHedom, they just go back to their previous lives. So the first part is them getting trained with no particular goal really, because they don't really want to be SCYTHEs. Although I guess the training itself is interesting and Faraday is interesting, so they're somewhat into it at points. At the first conclave, one of Goddard, you know what? Probably it's Goddard because of its God complex, so I'm gonna call him Goddard. Subtle. So at the first conclave, one of Goddard's junior SCYTHEs suggests that whoever wins the apprenticeship and becomes a SCYTHE should glean the other one, which is completely random, first of all, because that's not what happens to other apprentices who don't get to be SCYTHEs. And number two, they were already promised that if they don't become a SCYTHE, they were gonna just go back to their previous lives if they were told that they would have to kill one another if one of them doesn't become a SCYTHE, then they would just not accept the position at all. And I'm saying this because 5 minutes before this happens, Scythe Curie asks a question to test one of the apprentices, and she's like, why don't you tell me 5 poisons or something like that? And then the kid just like tells her 5 poisons, and she's like, what if I asked you to tell me a 6th one now? And the kid is like, well, I wouldn't tell you because your original question was 5 poisons, and now you change your word and make it like 6 poisons. That would be like breaking your word, whatever, something like that. And if a scythe's word is that important to them, then how about Faraday's promise that he made to these kids that if they don't become a scythe, they will just go back to their previous lives? And I understand that they have the High Blade under their control, but if 50% of the scythes are against Goddard and his methods, there surely is going to be some sort of voting on this completely random issue. But what happens is, High Blade is like, oh, is this okay? And then the other guy is like, well, we don't have anything that's against it, so then the main driving force of this whole story, that if they become a scythe, they will need to kill one another, could be completely avoided easily. It is towards the end of the conclave. High Blade just like approves it prematurely without asking anyone, but still, I am sure this can be brought back on the table in the next conclave, and there can be some voting because it's absolutely outrageous. It's also outrageous because it's directly conflicting the Scythe code, where you are killing someone just for sport. And guess what? Someone already says that, and then still no one does anything. Now, I would have accepted this if Goddard's influence was much more than it was told to be in the book. It was always told to be that there was like a 50-50% divide, and at that point I just did not see the 50% divide. And if the High Blade does have that kind of power to just like pass something without having a vote, something that divisive, that's also stupid. Why do scythes have a position that powerful? This is not a monarchy. So that brings us to the second part of our plot, which is who's gonna become a scythe, who's gonna kill the other one. Are they gonna kill the other one? What's gonna happen? Because Faraday is like super upset about this development, instead of waiting until the next conclave and bring it up again, he just goes ahead and kills himself. And because he kills himself, they cannot bring him back to life. The only way a scythe can die is if they kill themselves, which is kind of like being retired, I guess. But then the way he kills himself is some sort of unconventional. There are no camera recordings or anything. Citra is kind of suspicious that Faraday would kill himself. Rightly so. It makes no sense to anyone in the story as well. Okay, so once Faraday kills himself, hoping that Citra and Rowan's apprenticeships would be terminated, of course that's not what happens. They're just taken by 2 different scythes. Citra is taken by Scythe Curie, and Rowan gets taken by Scythe Goddard. So the fight is still on. Now Citra thinks something isn't right, so she starts looking into Faraday's death because she thinks it's murder and it's not suicide. And then she goes ahead and tells Rowan about it, which is fine, I guess, because they're friends and because they both cared about Faraday. But then Rowan goes ahead and tells Goddard about this. Now that's incredibly stupid. Why would you tell Goddard? Because he is obviously prime suspect in Faraday's death if it was murder. But none of this particularly annoys me. What really annoys me is that then Goddard frames Citra for Faraday's death. Okay, if Goddard had anything to do with Faraday's death, it would make sense that he would frame Citra. But he has nothing to do with it. For all he cares, Faraday actually killed himself. So then why does he go out of his way to just deal with Citra? Who cares? I guess it could be so that he makes sure that Rowan gets the scythedom and there is no rival anymore. But I mean, it's a major plot point in the book. Goddard's motivation does not make any sense to me. Was it Goddard that framed Citra? I assumed it was, but I don't actually remember exactly. But who else would frame her? Another thing about Goddard's character is it's just paper thin. There's no dimension to his character. no relatable motivation. And whenever the villain does not have any sort of relatable motivation, it's just like a madman sociopath that just enjoys killing. It's just not interesting to me. Obviously, we find out that Faraday didn't even kill himself. He just faked his own death, hoping it would still get Citra and Rowan's apprenticeship cancelled. So then this brings us a few things. One, Citra's research was also for nothing. All that detective work Citra was trying to do, it actually didn't mean anything, because she was not going to find anything anyway. She didn't discover SCYTHE Faraday actually faked his death. It was only when she was running away from the SCYTHE because she was being framed by Faraday's murder that she found out that Faraday was actually alive. And the other plot progression was Goddard doing some mass killings, killing just everyone randomly in horrible ways, fun to him, picking different weapons each time. The problem with that is, here's the thing. Everyone knows about his killings. They are not secret. There are video recordings of his killings. People know about them, but there is still no action taken against him. I understand that he is influential, but if it is 50-50, there would still be a strong case against him. But I guess it's enough that he just comes every conclave and just makes a random anonymous accusation against himself, and then no one else does anything. It just makes no sense. Why does no one else say anything? Because there was one anonymous accusation. How does it stop anyone else from saying anything else? If there are 200 sites, if 100 of them are against it, and they all go like, yeah, like this guy is killing with malice, obviously, not even in secret. He is just bringing a flamethrower to his gleanings. He also lives in a mansion. Is no one looking into this? Apparently not. How did he get this mansion? They're not getting paid or anything. Who are these servants? He obviously has servants. People go to these parties, so and anyone can go to this party to see for themselves, like even if you're against them. And again, the parties are not in secret. So he's living this glamorous life, holding the owner of this mansion captive. In the end, Citra becomes a SCYTHE, and then she's like, all right, I'm gonna glean Rowan now, and then she punches him in the face, granting him immunity so no one can kill him. And then Rowan escapes and becomes a vigilante that kills bad SCYTHEs, teaches them a lesson. And then I guess Citra is gonna work inside SCYTHE to just like deal with the bad SCYTHEs. But what they should really do is just abolish SCYTHE and let the all-powerful AI robot in space just deal with this too. Alright, I talked about a lot of my annoyances about the book, but like overall I enjoyed this book. It sounds like maybe I hate it, but I didn't hate it. I really enjoyed the book. I think the world itself is interesting. I guess they're also making a movie version of this, so we'll see how that goes. Did you love SCYTHE? Did you hate it? Did you get bored? Were you super excited to read it and you already read the second book and can't wait for the third book? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. That's all I have to say on SCYTHE, and I will see you next time.